Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are going to try to wrap our heads around a number so big, so astronomically large that it actually starts to sound fake. $56 billion.
It is a staggering amount of money. It really is.
And just to be clear, for everyone listening, we're not talking about a government bailout package.
No.
We aren't talking about a 10-year infrastructure plan for a medium-sized country. We're talking about one single company spending that cash in one single fiscal year.
And they're spending it to effectively build the physical foundation for the rest of the human race to play with AI.
Right. We're talking about TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. And the premise of today's deep dive is really simple, but the implications are terrifyingly huge.
They really are.
If you want to know if the AI revolution is actually real or if it's just a bunch of hype, marketing fluff and stock market noise, you have to stop looking at the chatbots. You have to stop looking at the software startups.
You look at the concrete. You look at the silicon. Because software can be written in a garage, but 2-nanometer chips?
No way.
Those require the most complex machinery ever built by our species. It's a whole different ballgame.
Exactly. So that is the mission for today. We have a stack of documents here that are essentially the ground truth of the AI industry. We're unpacking a very fresh, very intense Q&A session with TSMC's top executive leadership.
The big guns. We're talking about the CEO, C.C. Wei, and the CFO, Wendell Huang.
And this isn't some polished press release where everything is perfect.
Oh, not at all. This is them facing down a firing squad of analysts from the biggest financial institutions in the world. J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. And these are people who, they don't care about the magic of AI. They care about return on investment.
They were grilling TSMC. And the answers we got, they effectively paint a picture of a new industrial revolution, but it's one that is facing a massive physical wall. So let's jump right into the first part of this, the investigation. Because the very first thing out of the gate, the analyst from J.P. Morgan basically asks the question that I think everyone is secretly thinking.
It's the trillion-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. He asks, are we sure this demand is real, or is this just the dot-com bubble 2.0? And I think that's fair, right? We see these capital expenditure numbers going vertical, and usually when you see a vertical line in finance, it's followed by a crash.
It's the elephant in the room. Everyone is worried about an AI bubble. So TSMC is sitting there preparing to spend tens of billions of dollars on factories. If that demand just evaporates next year, that isn't just a bad quarter.
Yeah.
That is an existential crisis for them. That is empty factories gathering dust territory.
And I loved the CEO's reaction to this. Because usually when a CEO is asked, is your business a bubble? They go into sales mode. They say, demand is robust. We are supremely confident the future is bright.
Right, the standard corporate line.
But C.C. Wei didn't do that.
No, he was surprisingly vulnerable. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said, I'm also very nervous about it.
Which is so human, it actually made me trust him more. But then he walked through his process. He basically told the analysts that he turned into a detective.
Yeah, that was a great way of putting it.
He didn't just take the orders from the hyperscalers, and by that we mean the big cloud providers like Microsoft, Google, Amazon. He didn't just take their word for it.
This is such a crucial detail. He personally interviewed them. He sat down with the leadership of these massive tech companies and said, prove it. Show me the evidence.
Show me how you are making money with this today.
Exactly. Not in 5 years. Today.
He wanted to see the receipts, and what did they show him?
Well, they showed him that AI is helping their core businesses grow right now. It's not some future bet. It's optimizing the ad engines on social media, which immediately increases revenue. It's streamlining internal coding, which cuts costs. It's generating real revenue that more than offsets the cost of the chips.
Then he dropped the line that made me laugh out loud. He said he didn't just look at their technology, he looked at their bank accounts.
That was a great moment. Just so blunt.
He said, I checked their financials. And then he added, these customers are very rich. Their financial status sounds much better than TSMC.
Which is saying a lot, because TSMC is one of the most valuable companies on the planet.
Right.
They are not exactly hurting for cash. But his point is vital for you to understand. These companies, the Microsofts and Amazons of the world, have the liquidity to burn. They aren't borrowing money at high interest rates to buy lottery tickets. They're spending cash they already have to upgrade their engines.
It's a validation of the market from the guy who has the most to lose if the market is fake. But he didn't stop at external proof, did he? He looked inside his own house.
That's the second layer of verification, and I think it's the one that really sealed the deal for him. TSMC isn't just a manufacturer. They are a massive technology user. They run fabs, these fabrication plants.
And these are some of the most complex, data-heavy environments in human history.
Absolutely. And C.C. Wei revealed that TSMC is using AI to optimize their own production lines.
Okay, so when we say using AI, we're not talking about the HR department using ChatGPT to write emails, are we?
No, not even close. We're talking about using machine learning models to tweak the lithography machines in real time, to schedule the wafers moving through the factory, to detect microscopic defects before they even happen.
And he dropped a hard number on that.
He did. He said they achieved a 1% to 2% productivity improvement just by using AI internally.
Okay, play devil's advocate for me here. To a regular person, 1% sounds like a rounding error. I mean, if I tell my boss I was 1% more productive today, nobody cares. Why does 1% matter here?
Because in semiconductor manufacturing, at the scale TSMC operates, 1% is hundreds of millions of dollars.
Wow.
Maybe even billions. If you improve the yield the number of working chips you get per wafer by just 1%, that is pure profit. It requires no new materials, no new workers. It's just better efficiency.
So it's free money.
That's what C.C. Wei called it, free money, or free to TSMC. So his logic is watertight, right? I am seeing a clear return on investment in my own factories. My richest customers are seeing a clear ROI in their businesses. Therefore, the demand is real.
He called it a mega trend.
He did. And when a guy who's about to sign a check for $56 billion calls something a mega trend, you probably listen.
Okay, so let's talk about that check, because this brings us to the next section of our deep dive, the physical reality of all this. We mentioned the number, $56 billion.
Right, the upper end of their capital expenditure, or CapEx, guidance for 2025.
Just to contextualize that again, that is roughly the GDP of a country like Slovenia.
Or Uruguay.
Spent in 12 months.
It is a massive step up. I mean, to put it in perspective, just a few years ago, spending $10 billion was considered huge. Now they're spending 5, maybe 6 times that.
Yeah.
And the analysts were hyper-focused on this.
Of course.
Because in the chip world, money equals capacity. But here is the catch, and this is the part that I think most people miss. Money does not equal immediate capacity.
This is the gap strategy. I found this fascinating. You can wire the money today, you can sign the checks, but you don't get a chip tomorrow.
Not even close. It takes, on average, 3 years to build a modern semiconductor fab.
3 years?
3 years from breaking ground to high-volume manufacturing. You have to pour the concrete. You have to stabilize the structure so it doesn't vibrate even a nanometer. You have to ship in these massive EUV machines from the Netherlands, install them, and then calibrate them for months.
So if TSMC is spending $56 billion in 2025, where does that money actually go? What is it buying?
That money is buying capacity for 2028 and 2029. It is buying the future supply.
Wait, so if I'm an AI startup or if I'm OpenAI and I am desperate for more chips right now or next year in 2026, this $56 billion does absolutely nothing for me.
Effectively, yes. That is the pinch point. The management team was very, very clear about this timeline. They are calling 2026 and 2027 productivity years.
Productivity years. That sounds like corporate speak for we're going to make you work harder.
That is exactly what it means. It means sweating the assets. It means they cannot magically conjure new factories out of thin air to meet the immediate, overwhelming demand. So they have to work extremely hard, that's their phrase, to squeeze more efficiency out of the tools they already have.
So they're trying to narrow the gap between supply and demand by just running the machines smarter and faster.
Precisely. It sounds like a frantic kitchen during the dinner rush where you can't buy a new oven, so you just have to turn up the heat and move faster.
That is a perfect analogy. And this brings us to the silicon wall. The transcript references Elon Musk talking about the chip wall, this idea that we're running out of chips.
Right, and the analyst from Goldman Sachs asked about this. He specifically asked if power or cooling was the bottleneck for the industry. And the CEO, C.C. Wei, he just cut him off.
He was so blunt. He basically said, forget power. The bottleneck is me.
He admitted it. He said the bottleneck is wafer supply. Even if the data centers have all the electricity in the world, even if they have the best cooling systems, they physically cannot get enough silicon wafers from TSMC to fill the racks.
Wow.
That is the hard limit on AI progress for the next 24 to 36 months. We're limited by the speed at which TSMC can bake these wafers.
That is a really sobering thought. I mean, we think of AI as this ethereal software thing that moves at the speed of light, but it's actually moving at the speed of a construction crew.
It's physics. You cannot cheat physics. You can write code overnight, but you cannot cure concrete overnight.
Well, speaking of construction crews and concrete, this leads us directly to the next part, the American expansion. Because for the last few years, the story of TSMC in America, specifically Arizona, has been a bit of a soap opera, hasn't it?
It has, a huge one. It's been plagued by headlines about delays, labor disputes, reports of culture clashes between Taiwanese managers and American unions.
There was a lot of skepticism in the industry that TSMC could ever replicate their secret sauce outside of Taiwan.
Yeah, the prevailing wisdom was that the manufacturing culture in Taiwan was just unique, that it couldn't be exported to the U.S. desert.
But looking at this new Q&A, the tone has completely flipped. They aren't just apologizing for delays anymore. They are, well, they're bragging about yields.
This was the biggest surprise for me in the documents. The CEO stated that the yield in their first Arizona fab is now almost equal to their Taiwan operations.
Almost equal. That's a huge statement. That means the chips coming out of Arizona are just as good, just as reliable as the chips coming out of their home base in Hsinchu.
It proves the model is portable. It proves they can train an American workforce to operate to their incredibly high standards. And because of that success, they are doubling down.
Right, they're talking about a gigafab.
A gigafab.
It sounds like something from a sci-fi movie. What makes a fab giga?
It's all about scale. You don't just build one factory. You build a cluster of them. They just bought a second large plot of land in Arizona. The goal is to create a massive campus where they can achieve economies of scale.
Oh, okay.
If you have 4, 5, 6 fabs right next to each other, you share the chemical supply lines, you share the water treatment, you share the talent pool. All of that drives costs down.
And they put a specific target on this U.S. expansion, didn't they? A number.
They did. They said the goal is that eventually 30% of their advanced capacity could be in the U.S.
30%. That is a strategic shift. That isn't just a token factory to make the U.S. president happy.
No, not at all.
That's a significant chunk of the global supply chain.
It is. We are talking about 2-nanometer technology, the absolute bleeding edge being manufactured on U.S. soil. But, and this is important, they were also very careful to reassure their home base. They clarified that the most adjacent expansion is still Taiwan.
Okay, so Taiwan is still number one.
Taiwan remains the R&D hub, the heart of the operation. But having 30% in the U.S. creates a level of geopolitical resilience that simply didn't exist before. It means if something happens in the Taiwan Strait, the entire AI industry doesn't instantly go dark.
But here's the problem with building gigafabs, whether they are in Taiwan or Arizona. You need juice. You need a massive amount of electricity. Which brings us to Section 4, the hidden constraints.
Power, the invisible wall behind the silicon wall. And C.C. Wei made a confession here that I found really telling. The host asked about power constraints, and I think everyone assumed he would talk about the U.S. grid because we always hear about the U.S. grid being old and fragile.
Right.
But C.C. Wei said, I worry about electricity in Taiwan first.
That's worrying. Taiwan is an island. They have limited resources.
Exactly. These advanced fabs, especially when you get to 2-nanometer and beyond, they are voracious energy consumers. The EUV lithography machines, the ones that use extreme ultraviolet light to etch the chips, are incredibly power hungry.
So he's sending a message.
He's basically telling the Taiwanese government publicly, I can build the factories, I have the money, but you need to guarantee me the electrons. If you can't give me the power, I can't build the fab.
But then the conversation pivoted to the customers, the data centers. And this was another moment where TSMC played detective. C.C. Wei asked the hyperscalers, hey, are you guys sure you have enough electricity to run all these chips I'm making for you?
Yeah, because these AI data centers consume power like small cities.
And their answer just reveals how long-term these tech giants think.
It's incredible. They told him they planned for this power 5 or 6 years ago.
5 or 6 years ago.
They essentially told TSMC, don't worry about the power, don't worry about the cooling. We have that handled. We have nuclear contracts. We have renewables. You are the bottleneck. Just give us the silicon.
Just give us the silicon. It really reinforces that TSMC is the choke point of the entire global AI economy. Everything waits for them, but it's not just the raw silicon, is it?
No.
There's another bottleneck that came up in the documents. Packaging.
Right, advanced packaging.
Now explain this to me, because when I think of packaging, I think of a cardboard box. Or the plastic clamshell you can't open without scissors?
It's a bit more high-tech than that. In the old days, packaging was boring. You took a chip, you put it in a black plastic case with little metal legs, and you soldered it to a circuit board. Done.
Right.
The packaging didn't really add value, it just protected the chip. But with AI, the chip is too big and too hot and needs too much data for that to work anymore.
So what do?
They use technologies like Cabo's chip-on-wafer-on-substrate.
Carwas.
Think of it like a sandwich, or maybe a tiny cityscape. Instead of one big chip, they take the processor and they stack high-bandwidth memory chips right next to it, or even on top of it, and they stitch them all together on a silicon interposer. It's like building a little supercomputer inside a single package.
So the packaging is actually part of the computer architecture now. It's not just a box.
Precisely. If you don't package it this way, the AI model runs too slow. The data can't travel from the memory to the processor fast enough. You get a traffic jam.
And this is becoming a huge part of their business.
Massive. The revenue from advanced packaging is growing faster than their corporate average. It was close to 10% of their total revenue last year, and it's moving over 10% this year.
Wow.
But the telling stat is the investment. They are dedicating 10 to 20% of that massive $56 billion CapEx specifically to packaging technology.
So that's billions and billions of dollars just on the glue that holds the chips together.
Because without that advanced packaging, the AI chips simply don't work. You can't sell the processor if you can't package it, so they have to build capacity for both at the exact same time.
So we have the demand, we have the physical constraints, we have the power issues, the packaging bottleneck, but surely TSMC isn't the only game in town.
The competition question.
The analysts brought it up. Specifically, they asked about Intel.
The foundry competition in the U.S.
Right. The U.S. government is giving Intel billions in grants. The president loves them. They are an American icon. They're building massive fabs in Ohio. So the analyst from Morgan Stanley asked point blank, are you concerned about losing market share to this U.S. competition?
This was the polite shades section of the deep dive. It was subtle, but if you know the industry, it was brutal.
And C.C. Wei's answer was one word.
Just no.
That was it. He didn't say we respect our competitors, but just no.
He elaborated, of course. But the elaboration was even more devastating. He used what I call the money can't buy time argument. He said, I'm quoting here, it's not money to help you to compete.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because Intel have money. The U.S. government has, well, functionally infinite money. Why can't they just buy their way to parity? Why not just buy the same machines TSMC has and turn them on?
Because of the physics of learning. It's a hard-won experience. C.C. Wei laid out the formula. He said it takes 2 to 3 years just to develop the technology, just to figure out how to make the transistor structure work in the lab.
Okay, 2 to 3 years.
Then, once the tech is ready in the lab, it takes another 1 to 2 years to ramp the product. That means getting the yield from, say, 10% to 90%.
So you're looking at a 4 or 5 year cycle, best case.
Exactly. And you cannot shortcut it. You cannot throw cash at a wafer and make it etch faster. You can't throw cash at a validation process and make it skip steps without risking total failure. It's like the old joke, you can't make a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant.
Right.
Some things just take time.
So his point is, even if the competition starts perfectly today, they are effectively years and years behind where TSMC is right now.
Right. And TSMC isn't standing still, waiting for them to catch up. By the time Intel figures out the technology TSMC has today, TSMC will be on the next node. They're already moving to N2, the 2-nanometer technology.
And the demand for that is already high.
Higher than ever. C.C. Wei noted that customer interest in N2 is higher than it was for N3 at the same stage of development.
And why is that? What's driving it?
It comes back to what we discussed earlier. Energy.
It always comes back to energy.
Always. The 2-nanometer chips are just more efficient. If you are running a data center with 100,000 GPUs and you can reduce the power consumption of each chip by 30% by switching to N2.
That saves you millions of dollars in electricity.
Millions. It also solves your cooling problems. So the hyperscalers are lining up to pay a premium for N2 just to save on their electric bill.
So TSMC is locking in the next 5 years of dominance while the competition is still trying to figure out the roadmap from 3 years ago. That is a formidable moat.
It's a fortress. And honestly, listening to him, you get the sense that he isn't looking at Intel in the rearview mirror. He's looking at the laws of physics as his only real competition.
Now, before we wrap up, we have to touch on the rest of us. The people buying regular phones, laptops, maybe a new PC. Not everyone is building an AI data center. What did they say about the consumer electronics market?
Yeah, the last section of the outline, this is a bit of a good news, bad news situation. The bad news, if you're a manufacturer relying on volume, is that unit growth is minimal. It's basically flat.
So people aren't buying more phones.
No. The days of double-digit explosive growth in smartphone sales are over. Pretty much everyone who wants a phone has one. The market is saturated.
But there's a but, right?
But the mix is changing. C.C. Wei pointed out that while unit counts are flat, the feature richness is increasing. Basically, people are buying the Pro models. They are buying the Ultras. The high-end segment is really resilient.
I guess that makes sense. If I'm going to keep my phone for 3 or 4 years, I might as well buy the good one. I'm not upgrading every single year anymore.
Exactly. And that benefits TSMC because those high-end phones use the most advanced and most expensive silicon. They use the latest node. The budget phones use older chips that are cheaper. So even if TSMC ships the same number of chips, they make more money because the mix is shifting to premium.
Speaking of making more money, we should talk about pricing. The transcript mentions that the average selling price, or ASP, of TSMC's wafers has gone up by about 20% for 2 years in a row.
That's a massive jump. Imagine if your grocery bill went up 20% 2 years in a row.
Well, it feels like it has. But in the chip world, are they just gouging us because they have a monopoly? Is this the TSMC tax?
You might think so, but the CFO, Wendell Huang, gave a very nuanced answer. He said the price increases are mostly there to offset inflation. Materials are more expensive, the tools are more expensive, and electricity, especially in Taiwan, where rates have been hiked, is getting a lot more expensive.
So they're just passing the costs along to Apple and Nvidia and the rest.
Mostly. But he claimed the real driver of their profitability isn't just jacking up the price, it's utilization.
Okay, explain that term for the listener, utilization.
It refers to how much of the time the factory's running. A semiconductor fab is like a commercial airliner. It has huge fixed costs. If it's sitting on the ground empty, it's burning money. If it's in the air full of passengers, it's printing money.
And TSMC.
Because demand is so insanely high, TSMC's utilization is through the roof. They are running these factories 24/7, near 100% capacity. Every minute of every day, those machines are etching silicon. That efficiency is where the real profit margin comes from. They aren't wasting a single second.
Okay, so let's zoom out. We have covered a huge amount of ground here. We have a $56 billion bet. We have a CEO playing detective with the world's richest companies. We have a silicon wall that won't really come down until 2028. How do we synthesize all this? What is the big takeaway for you?
The takeaway for me is that we are firmly in a seller's market for intelligence. If you view AI as synthetic intelligence, TSMC is the only company selling the brain matter. And the demand is real. It's been verified by the bank accounts of the biggest tech companies in history.
And the timeline. What about the timeline?
The timeline is the critical part. The roadmap tells us that the next 2 years, 2026 and 2027, are going to be a grind.
A grind.
Yes. We are going to be hearing about shortages. We are going to be hearing about tight supply. Because the cavalry, those new factories bought with today's $56 billion, doesn't arrive until 2028.
So if I'm a startup trying to get my hands on top-tier compute for my new AI model, good luck.
Get in line. And it's a long line. You're behind Microsoft, you're behind Google, you're behind Meta.
It really puts things in perspective. We talk about AI moving at the speed of light, software updating overnight. We're used to this digital pace where everything is instant, but this moves at the speed of construction.
You moves at the speed of pouring concrete and installing plumbing.
It's incredible.
That is the provocative thought I'm left with. We often wonder, what is the limit of AI innovation? We usually think the limit is ideas or algorithms or maybe data. But reading this transcript, I think the limit is just physics. Yes. What if we are limited not by how smart we are, but by how fast we can physically build the machines that do the thinking? If TSMC tells us that even with $56 billion, they can't solve the shortage for another 3 years, that suggests a hard speed limit on the AI revolution.
We are speeding down the highway in a Ferrari, but the road is being paved right in front of us, 1 mile at a time.
And there is only one paving crew in the world.
That is a terrifying and fascinating thought. Next time you look at your phone or ask a chatbot a question, just take a second to think about the sheer industrial heavy metal effort required to make that little interaction happen. It's $56 billion of effort.
It's the most complex manufacturing humanity has ever undertaken, and it's all happening right now as we speak.
On that note, we will leave you to ponder the silicon wall, Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.